more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought out loud, that thought exists, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Illusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Illusions, the Bible, poetry, essays, all kind, all of it appropriate to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
Yeah? Well, we're gonna have to do something about that. This is RiverWestRadio.com, community-supported radio streaming live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm your host. My name is Michael Wordsworth, and welcome to Breaking Down the News, the show that presents the news highlights of the week, but with a twist. Breaking Down the News is more concerned in bringing you information that wasn't covered on the front pages. Headlines you don't want to miss, because not listening could be dangerous to your freedom, liberty, and health. And good afternoon. Welcome to this Friday, the 15th of June, 2012 episode. I am Michael Wordsworth, and these are words worth listening to. Today, very exciting, we have Rosa Koire on. I've read much from her book called Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. This is fascinating stuff. This is a must-listen-to episode today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rosa Koire. She is a forensic commercial real estate appraiser specializing in eminent domain valuation. Her nearly 30 years of experience analyzing land use and property value enabled her to recognize the planning revolution sweeping the nation. While fighting to stop a huge redevelopment project in her city, she researched the corporate, political, and financial interest behind it and found UN Agenda 21. Rosa speaks out across the nation and is a regular blogger on her website, Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com. Rosa Koire, welcome to the show.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
It is. I just want to say right off the bat, you remind me, I put you right up there in the ranks of some of my favorite heroes. I don't know if you're familiar with Bev Harris from blackbox.org. She uncovered the initial voting scandal between Gore and Bush in Florida. But the only reason why I mention her is because when relatively ordinary people come out of the ranks of our citizenship and rise to bring these causes to light, you become my hero. So thank you, Rosa, for your work. And we want to just pry your mind and ask you so many questions today. I hope you're up to it.
I'm really looking forward to it. You know, I want to say before we start, you know, just in response to what you just said, as much as I love hearing that about myself, I want to really emphasize that there are no heroes in this fight, that we are all heroes. And, you know, I don't mean that, you know, in sort of a kind of a, kind of a dorky way. I really mean it. You know, this is a time for all of us to work together and to not look to any one individual to, you know, to save us. I'm very happy that I am getting a platform because I think it's important for all of us to understand what is happening now and what we can do to fight United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. So thank you so much.
You are very welcome, and I have to agree. You're right. This is really actually no place for hero worship, because really what that comes down to is we're not being leaders anymore. We're being followers, and it's just easier to say, you're my hero, so you do all the work, and I don't have to do anything but give you praise, and that's just not the case.
I love it. Of course, I love hearing it, but I really want to make sure that, you know, it's a lot more fun when we're all out there together rather than there, you know, just having a few of us out here talking about this. So I really appreciate that you're putting this energy into having this information go out to your listeners.
Well, Rosa, you are the expert on the subject of UN Agenda 21. I've attempted to tell people in our community what this agenda is. It's so complex, so vast and far-reaching into our local communities. I thought it's best if you start off by just explaining in your own words, what are we talking about? What is UN Agenda 21?
Great. That's a good place to start at the beginning. And with the definition, first I want to say it is not Catch-22. It is not Area 51. It is the agenda for the 21st century. That's why it's called Agenda 21. And it's called that by the United Nations and the 179 nations that signed on to that agreement in 1992. It is the blueprint, it is the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all plants, all minerals, all animals, all means of production, all construction, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. It is a totally comprehensive plan. It's not a dusty old 20-year-old plan that that has no impact. It is the way that it was agreed to and the way that it was brought into the United States has actually created offshoots and sort of seed plans that are all across the United States right now. And part of what we're seeing with our collapse in our economy is the result of the implementation of the United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. So people will see it; they'll recognize it. It's not called Agenda 21. You'll see it called Sustainable Development, Sustainable Community Strategies. You'll see it in your town, in your land use plans, as well as the National Defense Authorization Act, the USA Patriot Act. These are all enabled and justified by United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development.
Could you give us an example of something recently where this agenda is actually taking place in any county within the nation? There's got to be a few examples.
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I can just let me just lay this out for a sec so that people have a general sense of what this is, because as I said, it's sourced in the United Nations. And what is sustainable development? It is what's unsustainable? It's single-family residences, appliances, air conditioning, meat eating, dams, reservoirs, farming, just traditional tillage. These are considered to be unsustainable. And the affluent middle-class lifestyle of the American is considered to be unsustainable under this plan. It's an actual plan. It's 300 pages. It's 40 chapters, and it was signed on to by George H.W. Bush in 1992. It's not a treaty, it's an agreement, so it didn't have to be ratified by the Senate or the Congress. And then it was brought back by Bill Clinton to the United States with the President's Council of Sustainable Development in 1993, and the sole purpose of that was to implement it in the U.S. And they did that with many ways, but one of the ways they did it was by giving a multi-million-dollar grant to the American Planning Association. And they said, we need to get this all across the nation. We want to change policy in the entire United States. And we've got these, on the President's Council of Sustainable Development, they had 12 cabinet-level federal agencies, 12 cabinet-level secretaries, including education, interior, defense, housing and urban development, EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and transportation. And they said, we can implement a lot of this through policy changes, but we want to get this into every single city and local municipality. So they paid the American Planning Association several $1 million to create a document called Growing Smart, Legislative Guidebook, with planning, model statutes for planning and the management of change. And this is now in every single city, county, and state, and every university in the United States. If you want to study to be a planner, you're going to study that book.
Wow.
And so this is how it got into your town. So I'll give you an example of something, that you may have heard of. You may not have heard of this.
Okay.
There's a couple. Part of this is one of the elements. This is about controlling land use, controlling your use of land, and also restricting private property ownership.
Incredible. Very un-American, actually.
Very much so, because our Constitution is founded on the concept that our individual rights are guaranteed to us through our Constitution. They're not granted, of course. We were born with those rights, but they are guaranteed to us. So this is what this is a balancing, as they call it, between the rights of the community, which are undelineated, completely undelineated, and the rights of the individual. So whenever you balance the rights, the so-called undelineated rights of the community with the rights of the individual to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the individual is going to lose. And the rights of the community, which may be given or taken away by a government, granted or taken away by your government, those will always come out on top. So right now, there was just a lawsuit that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. There's a couple called the Sacketts, and they live in a town called Priest Lake, Idaho. They bought a piece of land there, and they wanted to build a house on it. It's near the lake. It's not on the lake, and it's not a level piece of land. In fact, it's slightly inclined. They got their permits. They went ahead and they started to do some land moving, and they got a notice from the EPA, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, saying that they were in violation of wetlands statutes, and that they had wetlands on their property, and that they were going to be fined $37,000 a day if they didn't get the land back exactly the way it was before they started bringing in their bulldozers. So most people, and this is common, people freak out. They fold. They can't, when you're up against the federal government like that, or state government, or even local government, you're not in a position to oftentimes to fight. But they did fight. They got the Pacific Legal Foundation to defend them. They went all the way. Unfortunately, this case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, which says something, doesn't it about our nation right now. And they got to the Supreme Court and they won. But I'll tell you what they won. They didn't win. First of all, it's difficult to say that they had wetlands there. It had never been delineated, and in fact, they live on an incline. It's difficult to say that it's a wetland when it's actually on a slant, because water runs downhill, right? But that wasn't what the case was about. What they actually won, and what we won as Americans, was the right to challenge the Environmental Protection Agency, the right to have a hearing before the agency, because they had not even had an opportunity to challenge their accuser.
Oh, my goodness.
And this is what they won. This is what's so outrageous, is that when you're looking at your loss of rights here in the United States today, you have to go all the way to the Supreme Court to be able to get the right to challenge a federal agency.
And that's not easy, getting an appointment with them. I hear Elena Kagan's pretty busy these days helping take over America and Bahamas. Oh, geez. Rosa, this is some heavy stuff. I just want to back up for a second so that the listeners understand. You're talking about a vast organization based out of the United Nations and they have an agenda called Agenda 21 for the 21st century. Basically, this is a way to bypass all private land ownership and bring in a totalitarian regime. How would you describe, what's the end result when this actually takes place? What do we get out of this?
Not a heck of a lot. Here's the way it works. What this really is, this is a hijacking of the environmental movement. That's why I called my book Behind the Green Mask.
Right.
Because that's the candy coating. That's the green mask for this. What you get, though, is the erasure of jurisdictional boundaries. This is the erection of a shadow government. It's a regional government that you'll see now. You're going to see that right there in Milwaukee area. You're going to see it all over Wisconsin. You'll see it in the Pacific Northwest. You'll see it all across the nation. It's everywhere. This is an erection of an unelected group of boards and commissions, unelected boards and commissions that actually erase and superimpose themselves on the infrastructure of the United States, so that we are no longer able to have a representative government, but instead have basically what is referred to as a Soviet, which is unelected boards and commissions that you have no influence on, who are making rules, regulations, and laws that have a direct impact on your life, and you have no way of stopping them.
Rosa, how long before this creature with 1,000 tentacles completely has us and we can't resist or do anything? How long do we have?
Well, I'd like to say that will never happen, because the people of the nation are beginning to rise up and stop this. And this is the time. The time is now, because no one is holding a gun to your head right now. This is the time. We still have some rights. And because it's done slowly, and because it's done property by property and individual by individual, and because they slowly, peel you down by having you, what do? They make you walk through something at the airport. You have to unpack your bag. You have to disrobe. So you're becoming more and more used to complying. You're sharing all of your intimate information on Facebook. You are going to go along with the biometrics that IBM is putting together to identify you. You are willing to allow your property tax dollars to go to subsidize private individuals. So all of these things are a breakdown of our society and of our structures. And when you go along like that, pretty soon you're going to wake up and you're in a tighter and tighter box. And this is what's happening. But I don't want to say that it's going to be all over, because I don't believe that. We are fighting this all across the nation. More and more people are finding out about it all the time.
Okay, so this is a slow takeover. What do they call that? A high-speed crash in slow motion taking place here right in America into our local communities. There is a vast movement across the nation now to repel, because people are aware. How many well-meaning poor souls are participating in the environmental movement, not knowing that they're actually helping instigate Agenda 21?
This is the case, all across the country, is that especially when you're on the left, as I have been, all of my life, registered Democrat, worked on, many, many issues, progressive issues. It's very difficult to see this because the rhetoric is really good. This is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. And it's actually enabling, the breakdown of our economy, our loss of private property rights, I have to remind people, as they know, that your most important private property, of course, is your own body. And so, when you have sustainable development principles that are being inserted into every course from pre-kindergarten to postgraduate, you find that people they're being indoctrinated. And people say to me, well, what's wrong with sustainable development? Because when they hear the term sustainable development, and they think it means conservation.
Right.
And that is not the case. Of course, I'm in favor of conservation. My partner is a general contractor. She built a whole house out of recycled materials. I seldom buy anything new. This is not about conservation. This isn't about turning off your tap. This is about inventory and control of every aspect of your life where human activity meets the environment.
Okay, have you had a chance to look into what's going on in Wisconsin regarding UN Agenda 21? What's brewing here?
Well, like many, many other states, of course, across the United States, Wisconsin has members of the state who are members of the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives, and that is ICLEI. They've changed their name now. They call themselves Local Governments for Sustainability.
Local governments, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. They call them, they don't want you to know that they're international and that they're sourced in the United Nations. This is a group that is a membership group. It's a worldwide group. They say they represent like 600 million people worldwide and around 70 countries. But they were created through the United Nations to implement United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development across the world. and there are a lot of members in the United States, and these are actually, they're cities that are members, okay? And ICLEI sells climate adaptation software. They sell model statutes, and you'll remember that from, of course, from that, the book, the Growing Smart book, which, by the way, is Smart Growth. The American Planning Association came up with that. Okay. They're a partner in this. So ICLEI is a membership organization that actually monitors and publishes information on how cities are able to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. The negative of that, of course, there are many, but this is a membership organization made up of local officials, government officials, but they never publicize what they're doing. This is not available to you on a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, or a public records request. And they partner with corporations. This is essentially a corporatocracy. It's a totalitarian state being erected. So in Wisconsin, you have the members in Wisconsin are Dane County, Fitchburg, Howard, Madison, Marshfield, Milwaukee, and Oshkosh. And they are members of the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. They pay dues, they receive information, and they are monitoring your greenhouse gas emissions with software from this non-governmental organization.
Wait, where their software is hooked up to what? Our power plants? I know they'd like to put it on, have those new smart meters. Nobody has that in Milwaukee. The good news about us is we're 10 years behind. So if a UN agenda takes us over 10 years from now, it'll take 10 years for us to catch up.
You hope. Now, are you telling me that you guys don't have any smart meters in the state yet?
I have not heard anybody. It's more of a California thing, isn't it? Because
no, it's not.
No.
Smart meters are all over the world. They're in most nations. I've seen them in rural Mexico.
Well, how do we get them? I mean, do you go to the Home Depot and buy them and put them in yourself?
No, you don't buy them. No, your utility provider, your gas and electric utility provider has contracted with a private firm that will come out and without asking you, you should go outside now and go see if you've got one. They will go and they will install them on your on your regular meter, on your analog meter, without asking you.
Okay, wait a minute. Actually, there was a situation for about a year and a half now. The Wisconsin Energy's gas division, they've been coming out and replacing all the meters, and this was something that we would get a letter in the mail saying, hey, contact the gas company. We want to come out and replace your meter. Are you saying potentially that those new meters are the smart meter?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no. My goodness. We're completely unaware. I myself am unaware of this because I can't. Yeah. I look at the stupid thing. It doesn't look that smart. I'm sorry not to make too light of it, but I'm not smart enough to recognize that this is, in fact, a smart meter.
Okay, well, is it digital?
Digital?
Yeah. I mean, does it have, is it like one of those little things that has the tiny clocks that go around, or is it one of the things that has the, a digital readout, like it has the numbers printed across that are moving across the face of it? It sounds to me like you've got a smart meter.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to double check that and let our audience know in a future point. I think actually everybody listening should go check out your meters and just see. We can't really tell. There's nothing on the electric meter. We've got They pretty much got the little spinny dial things. They look pretty normal, but it's hard to say. I mean, it really is. So, okay, just for example, in the future, because of these smart meters, they'll have data fed back to them saying we are, for example, exceeding the allotted use of sustainable energy at any given moment, and we're going to be taxed at a higher rate now, or...
Yeah, well, the way this works, okay, it's called the smart grid. And by the way, never trust anything called smart, because it isn't. And if you object to it, what are you, stupid? So, it's set up, okay?
Yes.
So the smart meters, okay, these are digital meters, and they have an RFID radio frequency exchange in them that reads, that is constantly pulsing out information regarding your usage, and they can be shut off remotely. They are tied to what is being erected as a grid, an actual grid that will control all meters, and we're not just talking about gas and electric. Ultimately, we'll be talking about water as well. So your meter will be able to individually connect, your appliances will be individually connected through chip with your meter. All new appliances are being rolled out in 2012 with an RFID chip that will be read through your meter, and they will be, you know, if you want to run your wash at a certain time of day, you turn it on, nothing happens because that appliance is being regulated, and the grid is saying that there's too much usage at that time. If it was just that, it wouldn't be quite so bad. But what this is that it is basically being used, it will be potentially being used to shut off your power, your water, your electricity at any time. And if you are, especially if you're a person who's involved in dissent, who is able to, speak out and wants to speak freely, it's yet another control and management device. Also, there are people who do say that they have health issues. I don't go into that because what I'm talking about is actual management and control. This is inventory and control. And when you think about it, when we're talking about inventory and control, we're talking about inventory and control of you. Everything that you use, everything that you are connected to, your transportation, your housing, your education, your economy, your food use, your environment, every aspect of your life is being inventoried right now, and we are coming into the control phase, and that's what people are seeing. The austerity measures that you're seeing, this is about reduction of your ability to use what's there around you in your world. And in order to create this what it is a totalitarian regime. In order to create that, they are creating an artificial scarcity. And that is a way to manage and manipulate and control you. And, so this is where it's going.
Okay. Now that you've explained that, we have these meters in place that can be independently shut off at will. Say, for instance, if somebody speaks out against any austerity measures, or maybe you don't like your property taxes being raised, or some non-elected official running your policies in your county, they could actually pinpoint us, shut us off, lock us out, and now we're off the grid. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that potential is there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is
That's
very
right.
scary. That is very scary. I'm just trying to imagine, like right now, I can say the public awareness of this issue in Milwaukee is next to none. We're going to try and change that, but I know many people in the political arena, in the building inspection areas, nobody's even heard of this thing. Let me ask you this question. If we have, for example, on July 1st, an oil embargo out of Iran, gas prices go up, the economy starts to drop, is this the time for them to make their move?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is all related to Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, because the collapse in our economy, here's how this works. The philosophy of Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, is that three things have to be in balance in order to have a sustainable planet, and that is ecology, economy, and social equity. And social equity, essentially, is what it says is that our standard of living is way too high, and that our standard of living has to be reduced in order to balance the world. So in order to, it takes a lot. We're quite a bit, most of us have more than one toilet in our house. It takes quite a bit to bring us down.
And I'd like to point out, too, just real quick to emphasize what you're saying, that if we were brought on par with, say, China, where they are able to compete with us because they pay virtually slave wages. No middle-class person could raise a family on that, and we're supposed to feel guilty that we can't compete with that. And so what you're explaining is they want to bring us on par. That means they want to bring us down to slave wages as well, with no unions, no representatives, nothing.
That's right. And it's very interesting to see that the unions are actually partners in this. They have a very short-sighted view.
Really?
Because
wow.
because the AFL. Okay, well, there are two aspects to Agenda 21, and one is primarily urban, and the other one is primarily rural. So the urban one is called Smart Growth, and what it does is it brings majority of the population into city centers where it can be more easily managed and surveilled, and they build high-density urban housing. That's multi-story residential condos and apartments over ground floor retail primarily.
We've seen a lot of that here, actually.
A lot of it's bankrupt. A lot of it is empty. It is often subsidized with your tax dollars, whether they are transportation tax dollars or property tax dollars. This is a plan to move the populations who are out in the rural and suburban areas, what this plan refers to as sprawl, move them into the urban centers, and where they will no longer have private vehicles through either you'll have vehicle miles travel taxes, you'll have high cost to park, you'll have high gasoline costs, so that'll ultimately squeeze out your private vehicles. And then they'll have these supposed high-speed trains, which are actually designed to fail. We have no high-speed rail in this country, and it's extremely expensive.
Right.
So you'll see high-speed rail being proposed, and that'll be used to bleed off a lot of your transportation dollars. So what happens is then, ultimately through monitoring and metering of wells out in the rural areas, pulverization of our roads that are in the rural areas, and restrictions on agricultural uses out in the rural areas, you'll find that people will no longer be able to maintain their properties out there, and they will be brought in slowly, but faster and faster now into the urban areas. So what's happening is that then you have the other part of Agenda 21, which is wildlands, and that is where that's probably where many of you live, is out on a rural piece of property, and you might have a well, you might have septic out there, you're on a rural county road. That's considered to be sprawl. It's a threat to the planet. Single-family residences are considered to be a threat to the planet. Oh, my goodness.
Farmland, too, huh?
Yes, that's right. And so people, of course, I travel all over the United States. I speak all over, many, many states I've been in. And, of course, I talk to a lot of rural people, and they say, well, where's the food going to come from? And this is, what this is a mega corporation, corporatocracy through public-private partnerships that's taking over individual ownership of land. It's a transition of private land ownership into public land ownership. That is a very primary goal of the United Nations, is to take private land, take land out of the management of individuals and move it into government control. So for living, how are you going to live? Obviously, the question is, where's the food going to come from if the farmers out there are being told that tillage is a threat to the planet, unsustainable. So the way it's going to work is that you're going to have these transit villages. Let's say Milwaukee will be considered to be a transit village or a mega city, and it'll be ringed by areas that are considered called food sheds. Oh. And that the determination of how many people can live in your area will be determined by how many calories can be grown on those food shed areas. And those will be controlled by mega corporations. So this, I know this all really does sound crazy. It is crazy. I'm not crazy.
No, I'm
a reporter.
Yes.
This information is
real.
True.
Very real, very scary, and very real. It's like waking up to a nightmare happening right here. We see in Milwaukee for about 8 years now, there has been massive condominium development all along the rivers, all along the lakefront. Some of it is provided by WHEDA, which is the Wisconsin Housing Authority. It's subsidized right along KK and Water Street. And I personally have been wondering, when is this mass migration of millionaires going to come to Milwaukee and buy up these expensively overpriced condos, and it turns out they never did. You're right. They're bankrupt. They're sitting empty. They have a few token people in there. There's retail space on the bottom, not yet developed, nothing happening, and yet it's going up, giving us the impression that the economy is actually fine. We're making progress here, but nobody's buying those things. And now you're telling us they plan on moving us into these units. You answered some of my next question already, but I just wanted to clarify. When you say moving, you mean squeezing us out economically out of the countryside, forcing us into the city?
Yeah.
Kind of like a welfare program or something, huh?
Yeah. See, you know what? This is first of all, obviously, this is a brilliant plan. There are a lot of people who think, that they're, that the government's just too incompetent and that they couldn't pull it together and they wouldn't do something like this and whatever. Actually, they would, and they are doing this. It's real. So the way that, the justification or how they're actually implementing is, through your collapse of your economy. Because when your economy is broken down like this and people are dependent on the government for either, your 99 weeks or whatever you're going to get, or your food stamps or your assistance, your aid to families with children or whatever, the more dependent you are and the larger your dependency, and that includes people who are formerly middle class, people who are children of the middle class, who are tremendously in debt through school debt. People like all of us become more and more dependent on the government. And when you create dependency like that, and then you withdraw it, then you have chaos like you see in Greece. Austerity programs, austerity measures. So when people are no longer able to maintain their properties, when there are less and less people who are able to pay their taxes, when people lose their land for non-payment of tax, when they have liens on them, when they're restricted by, ordinances or statutes to no longer be able to use their property, then they will migrate into the cities looking for money, for assistance, for something that they can do. And the dangerous part of this, among many other things, is that people are, the poorer you are, the more willing you are to do just about anything to get something to eat.
Right.
And when you are willing, now look at how many people are willing to get along with this program right now, and there's nobody holding a gun to their head.
I see.
When the tougher things get, the more people will be willing to sell out their neighbor. And I know this is scary. The thing is to remember not to become paralyzed by this information, but to use this information in order to re-erect your freedoms. Because this is what we need to do. We've been kind of, we went through the 90s where we were making as much money as we could, and then we had kind of a big shock and things crashed, and they recovered slightly. Now we're just floundering, and people are doing what they can to survive, but you need to recognize that this plan is a very well orchestrated plan, and it really requires all of us to do our civic duty. No matter, this is nonpartisan. It's regardless of whatever party you're in.
It is.
You need to understand what it means to be an American. Dissent is not permitted under this plan. If that doesn't scare you, I don't know what does. We still have a voice now, and we need to use it.
I hope that people listening today, their show will be archived, by the way, and we'll do our best to get it out there and make sure people hear this interview and this valuable information. But basically, I would put it to the listeners right now. First off, this might be probably as the first you've ever heard of UN Agenda 21 or Rosa Koire. And what she's saying is there's already in place this vast infrastructure to take over, remove any dissent, make the decision policy making litigation against us, move us into urban compact cities under the guise of a collapsing economy and an environmental movement. And yet at the same time, you don't see this yet, but very soon we are going to see an economic downturn, the likes of which we haven't seen in a while. And when this happens, I want you to please remember what Rosa Koire is saying here today, that this agenda is in place, and this is not auto-determination. This is something that is in a literal agenda. So when it happens to us, remember what she said today and look for the signs of this taking place, that in itself should give you enough validation to say, wait a minute, she wasn't crazy. This is true. This is happening. I'm not talking very long at all. I think this summer we could possibly see some kind of downturn, but basically by the end of 2012, nothing to do with the Mayan calendar. It just seems that the sources from Bill Tucker and the Bilderberg meetings are saying that they're looking at around the end of 2012, beginning of 2013 to really dump on us. And I'm just asking people out there to be aware so that when it does happen, you'll understand what Rosa was saying today. And then maybe you will believe, if not sooner.
I hope it is sooner. I hope that, certainly I hope that people are going to, for instance, pick up the local Milwaukee newspaper now and look at it and recognize that there are sustainable development principles throughout the newspaper. You'll see it in redevelopment project areas. You'll see it neighborhood revitalization, neighborhood stabilization projects, climate action plans, in your general plan. We've been educated, we've been certainly dumbed down, as Charlotte Iserby says, to think that civic involvement is boring and that, it's just something that's over our heads and we just can't get it. It's too, complex math or something like that. But, that's a manipulation in itself. What you're finding is that this plan is so pervasive, it's down into your neighborhood associations. In fact, neighborhood association leaders who say that they speak for you and your entire neighborhood are actually being farmed for, their people are being looked for who are willing to go along with this plan, who can be flattered into working with those who are creating this plan. And I want to say it's a public-private partnership. You have the lines between corporations and government are being blurred with public-private partnerships. What that means is that you, the public, are indemnifying corporations. So you are creating the, providing subsidies for them and also taking any losses that they might have. And you'll see this in low-income housing very much. Low-income housing developments don't pay property tax, so they don't pay for the services that they use, but your property taxes will go to subsidize those projects. And it's great to have people who don't have enough money to have a place to live. I think that's a good thing. I think that, there are certain things that we as a society can do for people who are having difficult times. This is not about that. What this is about is creating the hardscape for our future. It is actually subsidizing development from some huge companies like Enterprise Community Development with $280,000 units nationwide, low-income housing units, and $11 billion in leverage. There are many groups like this, companies like this, that actually take your tax dollars, build these high-density urban developments that are low-income housing that may sit vacant and glut your market. A lot of them
that's a good point.
Yes, contributed to the collapse. And this, the thing is, this is like a consortium. This is an agreement through federal agencies like the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and HUD, Housing and Urban Development, Education. Because if you look at Agenda 21, it is an actual document. You can find it on our website, which is Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com. If you look at it, first of all, it in itself is a green mask, because they make it sound good. So there's a lot in there you'll think, oh, that sounds cool. Why wouldn't I want to do capacity building for people who are poor and women and children? But what ends up happening is that they're using this plan to dismantle our quality of life. We're made to feel ashamed that we have a good lifestyle here in this country.
Yes.
And this is part of the climate, this is, part of the how it's being justified is by saying that we're going to have a total destruction of our climate. We're going to be underwater, and by 2090 if we don't radically restrict our ability to use our environment.
Many people believe that. I myself, about 7 years ago, I'm not sure how long it's been now, but I was feeling the programming that's been put out for like several decades now. I actually felt at one point, like when I heard that the overpopulation, the diminishing resources, I thought to myself, this is true. Wow, if I need to go, maybe I need to go. I mean, if I'm part of and that's, now that I look back on it, it was absolutely insane that I would even ponder for a second that I'm part of the problem. I'm feeling guilty because I'm sucking air on planet Earth here. How did that happen? I had to really say to myself, boy, you really got hoodwinked here. And I hate to say it, but in Wisconsin, Milwaukee especially, this attitude is still prevalent. There's a lot of people just not even having children right now. Mm-hmm. That's how bad it is. It is interesting.
This is funny because I'm accused, of course, of being of terrorizing people, and I say, "Are you kidding me?" There's disaster scenarios out there that say that the temperature is about to go up 6 degrees, and that the water supply is going to decline 30%.
And that never happened.
And this is by 2070 or 2090.
Or what about Al Gore's prediction? He said that.
So most of us are going to be dead. I mean, what I say is that, and of course, this is part of the justification is that the population is going to increase hugely. The population estimates are that the population of the United States is going to increase by roughly 30% by 2050. Now, a huge number of us are baby boomers and will be dead by then. And, we don't see a large number of children being born. These estimates are to justify the development of high-density development in the centers of our cities and subsidized by our tax dollars. And part of this, too, I want to talk about mega regions because this is really important.
Please do.
Of course we know we've got 50 states. We got city, county, state, and federal. And if you're going to elect somebody, you're going to elect somebody in your local city or your county or your state or your federal. That's what you're doing. Whatever you say about our system, that you're going to be representing representatives. And that's the way that our government is designed, right? It's a representative democracy, constitutional republic.
In theory, yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you could theoretically actually be president, yeah. But anyway, but the system is in place for that, okay? You could be mayor, that's possible, possibly. But anyway, so here's how this deal works, is that we think we have 50 states, but in fact we now have 11 mega regions in the United States.
Do tell, yes.
Yes, and now, this is not that the country is divided up into 11 pieces. This is that a portion of the nation, about 24% of the country, has about 74% of the population in it. And these are the huge megacities. There are 11 of them, and they're around the country. And then, of course, the rest of the 76% of the land is going to be considered wildlands. So, you're up there in the Great Lakes mega region, and there are other mega regions. The Pacific Northwest mega region is called Cascadia, and it includes part of Canada. The Southern California mega region includes part of Mexico. So these regions, these mega regions, they break jurisdictional boundaries so that it doesn't matter who you elect. You have no voice in the management and construction of these mega regions. And these are sold to you as economic drivers. You're told that your region, so-called, will not be able to compete financially with other areas unless it joins together in a huge conglomerate with counties and cities all working together.
That sounds a lot like how they sold the euro to the Europeans.
Yes, I'm glad you said that because you know what? The EU, the European Union, started as a trade agreement, and now you are finding that not only is it monetarily unified, but they are working on fiscal and political unification so that all of the EU basically will be directed from Brussels. And this is a complete loss of sovereignty, and this is what is behind the green mask.
A lot of us listening out there might not understand that what Rose is speaking about, there are groups behind these agendas for a long time. One of them is the Club of Rome. I'm sure you're familiar with the Club of Rome. They put out the Codex Alimentarius. It's a plan. Is the Codex Alimentarius a part of the UN Agenda 21?
No, it is not.
Okay, that's a separate, but is it the same sick, twisted minds behind it? Are these people working together?
Yeah, one thing I emphasize, when I'm talking with people about this is that although, I can remember being a really little child and thinking all I ever wanted to know in my life was who was running things. And, unfortunately, I'm getting to find out. But, one thing that's really, really important for all of us to know is that we are still a constitutional republic and a representative democracy.
Yes,
and the main thing for us to focus in on is that this is a global plan, but it is implemented locally. And we are local. It is our responsibility as sovereign people, as free people, to make sure that we retake our democracy, our freedom. And this is done locally. So although we can point to, those outside of our city, outside of our county, outside of our state, outside of our nation, what we need to do is to push this back out from our local municipality. And that's where we need to start, and we need to push hard there.
So with the aldermen and alderwomen.
Yes, and it's our job to educate our elected officials. And when I say, to people who come to me, all around the country, and they say, "What are we going to do? What can we do about this?" There are a lot of things that you can do. The primary first thing that you need to do is, of course, to educate yourself. And then it's like when you're on that plane and the stewardess says, when we're going down, you put that oxygen mask on yourself first and then you put it on your kid. This is it. You educate yourself first, and then you turn to your milieu, your people who you know, and you get your groups together, you educate your elected officials. If they do not understand what's going on, you help them. If they refuse to work with you, you get them out. We're at a point now where we really cannot wait. This is, this is a very vital moment. And people think that it can't happen here, that there's no possibility for the erection of a totalitarian state, but it is in place right now with, for instance, the National Defense Authorization Act, which has been stalled by a federal judge, but we are still looking at, identifying us as potential enemy combatants in our own nation, warrantless searches and domestic surveillance. For instance, now the FBI can search your hotel, bank, internet, and phone records without a warrant.
Oh.
This is your country.
Yeah. And you just got done saying earlier, we are still a representational democratic republic, and yet looming already in behind the curtain is this infrastructure ready to just clamp down on us, isn't it?
Well, it's actually doing it now. It's not, and the way you'll see it, you can see it right there in Milwaukee with your general plan or your comprehensive plan. This is a land use plan that's being used right now. You'll find your climate action plan as a part of your general plan. If you are outside of the city or you're in another city, you will have that same kind of plan. These are regional plans. They're identical all across the United States and the world. In fact, the one that's in San Francisco Bay Area is the same as the Hanoi Center Regional Plan. These plans are called Envision Your City, Vision Your City, Your City 2030, Your City 2050, Your City 2025. One city, one vision, things like that.
Oh, yeah, right. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Gee, I can't wait to be poor and living neck to neck with my neighbors, going up to the government food shelter, what do you call them, storage sheds, to get my cheese and my GMO-laden vegetables. And I'm sure, let's bump up the fluoride levels in the water. And will I be able to get free vaccinations that make my children mentally, developmentally challenged? I mean, these are all the promises, right?
You know, this is so not funny, but you got to keep a sense of humor because this is heavy. Of course, China was a signatory to Agenda 21, as were 178 other nations besides China, including us, and they are working on their local Agenda 21 plan. They are working on a sterilization vaccine with the United States.
And of course, over there, I just read, too, that they have found mercury in the children's milk. And I imagine there you have a situation where those that are doing well and manage to even crawl up into the middle class, they're not too against having some of their poorer brethren wiped out because they got like 1 billion of them, and it's, just the way greed and corruption works. Who cares about the poor? They're poor. Let them die. That'll solve our sustainability issue. But one thing I could say about China, those guys, you can buy gold from vending machines on the street. The people can buy gold. They understand right now China is mining gold. I don't know if you heard this. They're buying it up like crazy on the international market. They have a direct access from the Fed. They can bypass Wall Street now. And they are playing serious hardball to become the next world reserve currency.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we are really looking at a major collapse staring us in the face. And when you think about, China as a model for the United States, I don't mean to be partisan when I say what I'm about to say. It's just kind of a joke. Is that Donald Rumsfeld at one point said, as a joke, but with a certain wistfulness in his voice, that the Chinese didn't have to ask what their people what they thought. They could just go and do whatever it was that they wanted to do. This is the mentality of the Chinese that workers are expendable. That you just saw, a dissident, a truth speaker who risked his life to get out of his country, China, and then his family members are being detained and killed as retaliation.
That is
horrible. And we're not. What we're talking about here is the erection of this kind of a totalitarian state by refusing to allow dissent. And I'll tell you how that's happening right now in Milwaukee, and I guarantee that it is.
Please do.
Right now, you've got a plan going there, and I'm just saying this, but when you go and look, you're going to find it. It's your regional plan. It's called something regional. Like I was saying, it's called Milwaukee 2020, 2035, One Milwaukee, One Vision, something like that. Something Sustainable Milwaukee, something like that.
Okay.
You'll find it. Now that plan is this is the whole basis of Agenda 21 is supposedly to involve populations in their own in directing their own lives. But this is Machiavellian. It's actually the opposite of what they say it is. It's brilliant. The rhetoric is brilliant. So what they do is they say, this is your plan. Come on down. We want to hear what you think about Milwaukee 2035. Come on down and give us your opinion. So if you actually see the notices for that, it'll be pretty unlikely, because they don't just invite the general population to replan the whole center of Milwaukee. Instead, what they do is they put out the info to their specific groups, like non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, corporations, people who are on boards and commissions appointed by your mayor and council and supervisors. And those are the people who get invited to vision on your property. But if real actual people get in there and get invited, what happens is you are Delphied.
Yes, yes. Please continue.
So that's a Rand Corporation mind control technique that was developed after World War II, and it is used to bring large groups, or could work on one person all the way to the whole world, to bring groups of people to a predetermined outcome, while giving them the impression that it was all their idea. So this is what happens when you get invited to come on down and give your opinion on the new smart Milwaukee. And you come in there and you're told that, what do you want? Business as usual, which is the way you live, or do you want your planned future? This is really how it's laid out.
Right.
And they show you these high-speed trains. They show you high-density development right in the center of your town, ground floor retail, 2 or 3 stories or more of residential above, bike lanes, high-speed trains, and or buses. And this is the design. And then, they tell you that if you want clean air and clean water, that you don't want industry, you don't want agriculture,
or
and
jobs.
Oh yeah, of course. If you want jobs, you're going to want this plan. You're not going to want private vehicles. And this is how it's designed. And these are all the same plan. And yet Milwaukee, I bet you, has paid millions of dollars to consultants to develop this plan when all they did was change the names of the streets.
Oh, my goodness. Just absolutely incredible. So does this tie into municipalities being sold from the local government to private owners, especially foreign investors? Is that part of UN Agenda 21?
That's right. Yeah, this is a transfer of ownership. So, for instance, something that I've been researching now, which is, a little bit off on that, but let me answer more directly your question as, what you're seeing as pieces of your municipality being sold off and privatized to large corporations. So you might see your sewer system sold off or your water system sold off, like you saw with Bechtel in Bolivia. One thing that you'll see, you were talking about Club of Rome, there's something called Club of Paris. And this is the G20 countries. This is what they call it, the Club of Paris. And they name these clubs because they get together in certain different cities.
Okay.
So the Club of Paris, and this is on our website, that's where the G20 gets together and they decide who's going to be the creditor nation and who's going to be the debtor nation and what they're going to take for collateral.
Oh, wow.
And they have something called debt for nature, debt swaps, debt for nature.
I see, just like how they're gutting Greece right now. It's the same thing.
Yeah, so you might have, and there's an ability to transfer from the debtor nation, which we are a debtor nation. We're $15 trillion in debt right now. They can transfer natural resources to other nations as collateral or payment for debt. And, I'm sure a lot of people are aware of the Trans-Texas Corridor, Texas 35.
Right. They denied it existed for a long time, and now they have billboards saying, yeah, it's here, welcome to it.
Yeah, and this is, this was to be the land-based shipping lane from Lázaro Cárdenas in Mexico all the way up to Canada, going through Texas. And because it was a land-based corridor, it's actually designed not to be crossed. It's a shipping lane.
No on-ramps or off-ramps, right?
Yeah, there was, in the entire state of Texas, I believe there were only 8, and it might have only been 5 on and off ramps in the whole state. And so, basically it split the state in half. This was the design for it, and it's a quarter of a mile wide. So, this is, okay, the people of Texas fought that to stop it, and they did. It was, the other thing about it was being built by the Spanish government, by the King of Spain, his company Sintra.
Oh, wow.
And so it was not a United States-based road. So, these are many things. You're going to see many things like this that are, shocking to you, that you might feel that they're too big to fight. But this, first of all, the people of Texas stood up and fought that and were able to call a halt to it temporarily. There is some talk about re-erection of Texas 35.
So it doesn't exist right now. That they did actually manage to repel that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't followed up on that, and so nobody's mentioned the Trans-Texas Corridor in about 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
We forgot about that one.
Yeah, I know. Well, these things come back. This is the thing that's really intense, is that when you fight these projects, let's say you're going to fight, for instance, here in Santa Rosa, California, which is an hour north of San Francisco, where I live. It's a town of 170,000 people, and we fought mandatory green building retrofits. And what that means is that they were going to be able to come into every single building, house, private homes, and commercial buildings in the entire city, about 33,000 buildings, and inspect them from the attic to the basement and charge you $750 to do that, and then require that you make upgrades to your building, energy upgrades to your building before you sold it or before you got a permit.
So the owner would have to pay for those upgrades, though, with no funding, no help whatsoever. You just got to pay.
Well, they might have been able. There were. Of course, there's always money for this stuff. That's the other thing. Is these are federal. You get federal grants, federal challenge grants. You get grants from private corporations like Siemens and IBM. And I want to talk about them briefly. But what happened was people recognized that this was a warrantless search and possible seizure. A violation of their Fourth Amendment right to privacy. And that no one was standing up to stop this, and we did it. We did. We have a local group, a boots on the ground group, besides our national group, and we put out 7,000 flyers about this because this information was not being given to the people by the local government, and we did stop it.
Well, maybe we need to do that here too. But sorry, please continue.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear you say that because that is what you need to do. Flyers are very, very powerful. They're, I'm not talking about standing on the street and handing them to people.
No, right.
You get up early in the morning, you make up 500 flyers. You can get out, it's good exercise. You get out and you walk those flyers around, drop them on porches, and get that information out in strategic areas of your city, and you're going to wake people up quick. And this is what you need to do, get as much information to people as possible and get it to them quickly and make it look official. We make our flyers up so that they look very official. And the truth is, they should be official. This information should be coming from your government.
Can we go to your... I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Go ahead.
Can we go to your website and use your... Do you have a media package available to help us put this into the proper wordage and get it out to the people?
Yeah, what we have on our website is, and that's Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com. What we have on that site is there's a couple of different pages with flyers. One is, I think the page is called What Can I Do? And then there's another one called ICLEI, ICLEI, that has ICLEI flyers on it.
Okay, thank you. Wow.
Yeah. And you of course, you change those flyers. You type them out however you want them. But you want to get that basic format is quite effective. Where you have the big notice at the top of it. Kind of looking official, and get the basic information. And especially if, like, let's say Milwaukee was doing a climate action plan that was going to ban drive-throughs, for instance, like our town had. They are phasing out gas appliances. They're going to make it so that you can no longer have gas appliances in your home.
Why?
Because first of all, it's cheap.
Oh, I see.
It's cheap, and you might use too much of it.
Oh, I see.
And imagine, in an emergency, you're going to have access to gas. I mean, we're talking about a really nefarious plan here. That I know this really sounds crazy. It's so crazy. I want people to understand this is a crazy plan. It's masquerading as something that is going to save the planet. It's not. This is the green mask for it. So, your climate action plan that's part of your general plan, your comprehensive plan there in Milwaukee and all across the United States, that plan might have in it that that you're phasing out private vehicles, that streets will be narrowed so that there's only going to be room for bike lanes and pedestrians. And that there's only going to be one car or less parking per unit, or that maybe you'll have parking on the edge of the city and nothing inside of it. No delivery vehicles and stuff like that can come in. So you want to look at these plans. This is part of what's happened in our country. We've been, watching Who's Dancing with My Wife a little too long and not paying attention. And there are people who are very willing and able to come in and basically subvert your government. yes, it's very effective to get out there with your flyers. You can have a movie night where you show a movie. You bring people in. You can engage young people in this.
Right. Yes, the young people are the hope.
You want to bring young people in. Yes, and they don't even realize how they're being indoctrinated. So you want to assist them. You want to do something, for instance, that we've done where we offered a $250 award for the best short 5-minute film on Agenda 21 Sustainable Development and its impacts locally.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, then you have a film festival. You show, you give your awards. You have an awards banquet. You're not going to see this stuff in the mainstream press. The mainstream press is owned by these mega corporations. So you won't see this information out there, but this kind of press, alternative press, so-called, is really, a very vital part of this fight.
The grassroots, I wanted to do, before I forget, you wanted to mention IBM and Siemens about their funding?
Yes, thank you for asking me.
You're welcome.
Forgot.
Yes.
Yeah, now this is a little piece. I want you to hang with me here. This is going to feel a little bit weird, but what we're talking about is, when we're talking about communitarianism, which is what we're talking about, the ends justify the means, and the individual's rights have to be balanced or subsumed into the rights of the community. In other words, it's all for the common good. When you think about that, you're thinking about communist Russia, Mao's China, and Nazi Germany.
Right.
Now, the groups, as I said, it's a corporatocracy. So the groups, you'll see some major groups that pop up over and over again, like Siemens Corporation and IBM. Siemens is a German corporation that was close to bankruptcy before World War II, until they were generously provided with slave labor and money by slave concentration camp victim labor by Hitler, and money to develop technology. Siemens does high-speed rail, they do light rail, they do the smart grid, they are involved in they're part of the Consensus Building Institute, and that's Delphi, and they, many other things, solar, and that's also part of this, huge subsidies. And we're talking about data collection, inventory and control, right? And there's where IBM comes in. IBM also traded with the enemy in Germany in World War II.
Yes, they did.
They had a wholly owned subsidiary there in Germany where they made it possible for Hitler to inventory and control.
Yes.
Yeah. The concentration camp inmates were tattooed. It wasn't like you're number one and I'm number two. Those numbers corresponded with a system that was designed by IBM and run on their computers in Germany.
How lovely.
Yeah, so when we're talking about IBM biometrics, we're talking about all kinds of systems that IBM is now designing. This is, we've got capabilities, technological capabilities that the Nazis would have envied. And this is, this allows for greater and greater restrictions of our freedoms. So this is the time. If we don't do it now, we are not going to be able to do it. Because one other public-private partner is prisons. Public-private partnerships are also in prisons. You have privately run and owned prisons, and prisons need prisoners. So you find more and more things becoming crimes, and more of us are breaking laws every day that we don't even know exist.
Isn't it something it's going to get to the point where you can't afford to wake up and go to work without breaking some law?
It's true, and I just saw something. I love to collect these things. I travel all around the United States, and a little boy. There's the idea of bullying, of course, is bad. I don't think it's a good thing, but a little 6-year-old kid, was just expelled from school because he did this little dance. He was like singing this song, I Think I'm Sexy, or whatever. I forget what that is. I've seen the video. It's pretty outrageous. But, a 6-year-old is like not conscious about these things. Well, he was expelled for sexually harassing another child. And, and you'll see the National Bullying Prevention Center is saying that this kind of thing will end when there's a federal law. And you just think, what are you going to do with a 6-year-old? Put him in federal prison, you're like, well, maximum security for you, kid.
Actually,
you know, so more and more of us with records before we even hit the age of 18.
Well, and there's a lot of ignorant people out there that are saying, "Oh yeah, it's good to put them prisoners to work." That's what they need to, and what they don't realize, of course, is that those are your jobs that they're taking. Now, Rose, I was on Google while we were talking here. I just wanted to look. I typed into Google Milwaukee Comprehensive Regional Study.
Oh, good.
Yep. And here, what do I come up with? A website called Go Milwaukee, City of Milwaukee. Oh boy, this looks all friendly and nice. Milwaukee's comprehensive plan, and it says that I've got the citywide policy plan here. It also prepares other plans, but look at the bottom of the page in this paragraph, the Smart Growth Law, also known as the State Comprehensive Planning Law, was enacted by the state of Wisconsin in October 1999. The Smart Growth Law requires that every community in Wisconsin have a comprehensive plan adopted by the governing body of the unit of government by January 1st, 2010. The Common Council has adopted procedures for comprehensive plan evaluation and amendments. Well, there you go. There you go, Rosa.
There you go. That's right there, and more so. I mean, you're gonna, the more you dig, good, you got there, and keep going from there. You're gonna find more and more.
I'm gonna shoot that website out actually to people. It's city.milwaukee.gov/plans and studies /citywidepolicyplan.htm, and I got this right off of city.milwaukee.gov comprehensive planning. So,
yeah. And you know what? I bet you if you put in Milwaukee and sustainability,
okay,
or put in Milwaukee and planning vision or regional vision or something like that, and Milwaukee and ICLEI, ICLEI. This is how you do it. I mean, I do probably 10 to 12 hours of research every day, and this is what you do. You just you follow your nose. You look through these. You're going to find it all there. It's also in your university system. When people are $150,000 in debt and they've got a BA, a master's, and a PhD, and counting the bumps on a snail's nose, they get out of school and they want to be able to regulate and control your use of property. And you'll find the lie. You'll hear this that that I'm against zoning or something like that. We're not talking about zoning. I'm talking about restrictions and regulations where a person who owns 1,000 acres can't put a house on his property because it's in violation of the streamside thresholds, view sheds, ridge lines, and all the rest of the stuff that you see all across the United States.
What's the point of owning land if you can't even put a development on it?
There you go. And then you give your property back to the government, you walk away, you say to hell with it, and then more and more land is owned by the public, which means essentially by no one. It's controlled by your central government. And then there are less people to care when people lose their private property rights because so few people will own private property. And this is why so many apartments are getting built. And you're seeing demolition and destruction of suburbs. That's your evil sprawl. So this is a very comprehensive plan across the nation.
Actually, one of our outlying communities from Milwaukee called New Berlin, and we jokingly call it New Berlin here, Heil Hitler, baby, because they really, really are. It was really interesting. I have a friend that works in the leasing apartments out there. And this friend, she was reporting to me one day, that there's this new complex down the road. It's all nice and, oh, wow, it's so wonderful. And some of the tenants in her complex were learning of it because they're advertising it. And they came up and they said, look at all the square footage they're offering and at this price. And out in New Berlin, it's a place where let's just say white people like to go to be away from the city. And I don't even mean that in a racial sense. Like, some people can't handle the city, and so they've migrated out. And what happened was the tenants were coming in and complaining to the management, which was her actually, saying, hey, we're getting cheaper rent down the street. How come you guys don't lower your rent? Well, this woman was aware of Agenda 21, And she thought, what the heck? I'm just going to Google New Berlin, Agenda 21, sustainability. And it turns out that this great new utopian complex is actually subsidized for low-income families. And it is part of the Agenda 21 development.
Yeah. This, that's interesting. Subsidizing. So what part of what this plan is. Social equity is about redistributing money. Whether it's done from nation to nation or whether it's done from location to location, because the concept is that everyone should have the same amount. But you'll see restrictions in these units that are government owned or government subsidized. For instance, here in the county that I live in, Sonoma County, this grew from just having it localized in specific units where it was against the law to smoke in your apartment. Now it's against the law to smoke in any apartment in the entire county.
Oh,
so, you're going to find more and more restrictions on people's ability to just live free.
Well, don't they like to pick on the peripheral, how would I say, those who can't defend themselves in these issues like smokers? No smoker can stand up and go, hey, look, I know smoking's right, but that's exactly who they target so that there is no political opposition. Then they move over to obese people.
That's right. And obesity is being called an epidemic now.
And it's just like that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Rosa.
Well, let me just say this one quick thing about obesity is, when you are beginning to recognize this now, you're going to see this everywhere. Okay. Now, obesity. Okay, it's not a good thing to be fat, but to call it an epidemic, and then to say, if you look at HEALS, HEALS, which is healthy eating, active living, or blue zones, you'll see those in some parts of the country. You'll see that people who are obese are actually, if you have an obese child, you can actually lose your child. Your child can be taken away from you under Child Protective Services in some areas. You'll find that if your town has adopted the HEALS, Healthy Eating, Active Living concept, then they will change land use planning to have smart growth. This is how they justify smart growth. They say, well, people out in the sprawl areas in the suburbs aren't exercising enough, and it's bad for their health. So we want to bring them in to the inner cities where they're going to be exercising more.
Oh, I can tell you all
have a car.
Right. That's we're exercising all the time. I mean, not like out in the country. There's no such thing as canoeing, horseback riding, backpacking, hiking. Only in the city can we stand on treadmills like little gerbils in a zoo while people walk by drinking their coffee and smoking their cigarettes while we're on the little treadmills trying to. But before I forget, you're talking about obesity. Would McDonald's ever be shut down for causing the obesity? No.
No. I mean, yeah, this is exactly. It's so fascinating because your food is just imbued with these empty calories. And if you walk, for instance, I'm out in California. I don't know how many Mexican markets you have, but and this is
quite a few actually.
I'm not okay. So I'm not talking. We're not. It's multicultural all you want, but I'm telling you, you walk into those grocery stores and you're going to see empty calories in every single aisle. That's about all there is in there.
Oh yes.
Sugar and empty calories, and there's a huge amount of that, no pun intended, coming into our nation. We are literally changing what we're doing is we're straying we're actually creating social classes based on food. So you either go to Whole Foods if you have money, or you're eating this junk.
I guess that's true. I never thought of it that
calories.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in our inner, let's just we call it the inner city, but it's not really inner. It's just kind of sprawls around and then turns over there. And it's any area that's low income families and people. And we have what we call ghetto marts. They're usually small, independently owned stores. And these guys get food stamps or whatever, and then they go out and buy cheap boxes of cereal. And you're right. Everything in that store, you would starve and die. So basically, you've got people that are overweight and starving, and they're low income. First off, they're not educated. They don't know the difference between white enriched bread and wheat and GMO and high fructose corn syrup affecting IQ. They don't know to take omega-3s to counteract it. They don't know what ascorbic acid is or why you would even want to take it in the morning. And this is a tragedy because you're right. I never thought of that they're actually creating a social class through food. Amazing. That is something.
And it's enforced through your educational system because, somebody sent me just recently an 8th grade exam from 1931. This thing is so complex. I mean, my dad, he went to Central High School in Philadelphia. He said to me, my high school education was more advanced than my college education. People are not learning now. The information that people are getting is so tailored to a workforce economy. These, you talk about China. They do not want an educated workforce. What they're looking for are people who are willing to go along to get whatever they can, and then the other people who have their PhD, in sustainable green unemployment, who are desperate for any way that they can pay off that debt, who will be in debt for the next 20 years, 25 years. These are people who are willing to become the pencil pushers of our, that will assist in our demise here. And I happen to be, one of those people, of course. I have a degree in my, my career, et cetera, was, but it wasn't in that, but I mean, like I say, my degree is in English. I can speak Middle English. Well, that's not going to have any real negative impact on your life. But if I'm able to, all I'm able to do is to restrict your use of your property, that has a huge impact. I am feeding and sustaining a system that is actually restricting our ability to remain independent.
That is so true. So true. I'm familiar with Charlotte Iserbyt's work too, and also John Taylor Gatto, where the history of compulsory education. People have to realize that this isn't a one-man event, or nobody could possibly make this up. All of this is predicated on historical facts, one before the other. In fact, going back to Rome, it's been discovered and suggested that Rome never fell. Basically, it moved over, became the Byzantine Empire, and then from there it just proceeded to go into vassal lordships, where, just like you're talking about, Rosa, what happened to the people is that wonderful Roman Republic. I don't know how wonderful it was, but I mean, I'd rather be a citizen in Rome than a peasant somewhere else on a vassal lord state, because at least you had some access to civilization. But in this case, what they did was to collapse the economy, tell all the private landowners that, okay, you can't afford to pay taxes, so your vassal lord will pay them to the higher tributary above him, and everybody will be saved. And all the people were like, yay, we've been saved, somebody's paying for it, we're getting something for nothing. Well, actually, that wasn't the case. They all became peasants, and for generations, that's what led to what we call the Dark Ages, those Middle Ages, where you had peasants. I always wondered that, how did we end up as peasants on European lands? And well, there you go. And they're going to do the same thing with UN Agenda 21. It's really an agenda to provide a feudal technocracy globally, where we're just squeezed out of the equation, aren't we, Rosa?
That's exactly right. It's a neo-feudalism. That's what you're seeing now. And, they're counting on people not noticing, or on being too exhausted or too stressed or too confused to stand up and say no. And also, communitarianism is dependent on your willingness to go along to get along because you want to be liked, or you're afraid to speak out. So I encourage people to look inside of themselves now and say, who am I? Am I a person that's going to allow my nation to go down around me, or am I going to stand up and speak out and take my chances with the free people of the United States?
Yeah, maybe get a black hood put over your head too and haul away. I hate to scare people off, but I mean, honestly, when you start to do that right now, they're letting people speak out. But the reason why is not many people here are concerned about this. I've been speaking for years to people, trying to get them to wake up, become aware, take action. And, frankly, Rosa, what happens? Milwaukee is just like this it's hard to explain, but once you're sucked in here, you are sucked in here. It's a way of life. And you know what we don't include? What's included in our way of life is beer, sauerkraut, cheese, sports, lots of alcohol. We're one of the biggest drinkers in the entire nation. And I believe me, I could go on and say how wonderful the people in Milwaukee are as well. I really could. But by and large, we don't respond well to change, and we're pretty much a group think people. I don't know if it's a lot of German heritage here or what, but no, the social pressure to actually go, okay, wait a minute, I've listened to this issue, I understand now, I'm awake and aware, and it's scary, but people attempt to go talk to other people, and yes, the attitudes you get back are, why are you concerned about this, and have a beer, and don't stress me out with this kind of thing. So
hey, I hope everybody listening is going to prove you wrong on this.
I hope so too. I'm kind of goading. I try to goad the public sometimes too. I try to insult them a little bit, hoping that that'll work, but that doesn't even really work. I sit here with the phone lines, just say, please, if you disagree, call in, please. It does no good if we just have an agree fest here. We don't get anywhere. We need people to call in and disagree with the whole thing, but no, I know. I can speak about Milwaukee because I'm from here. This is my home, and I know these people. And yes, sometimes they respond better to. Actually though, we're just gonna have to see, Rosa. Honestly, I'll take up the mantle myself to the extent that I can. You've taken it up to the extent that you can, but hey, if other people don't hop on board and decide that these issues are more important than the Brewers game, I mean. There won't be a Brewers game.
You know what? Here's what I think. I like sports analogies, and I think something that's really good for people, just think about this. This game has been going on for 20 years, and the other team has been out on the field making touchdowns for 20 years. And now we have just figured out there's a game. We put on our helmets and our pads, and we're out on the field making touchdowns. And if we don't get up on the board, we're going to lose. And this is, your life is not a game. Your life is far more important than that. If you think that being in I'll tell you what, you want an easy life? I'll give you all the food you need. I'll give you your shelter, your clothing, and all the TV you want. And the only catch is you're in jail. How do you like it? Because this is where we're headed here, and time to put away childish things and look at be men.
And or women.
This is not and women. Well, I'm talking about. Okay, you're right. Be women.
Be women or men. I mean, either way.
That's right, but I mean men in that sense, but of course yes. I shouldn't even say that. I am a feminist myself, but, this is the time. This is when you go and look at yourself in the mirror and say, what sort of a person am I? Am I somebody who's just going to stand still and let this happen? And you need to open your eyes to this because it's in your Milwaukee newspaper. It's happening right now in your Milwaukee. You go down to your city council, you go to your county supervisors. You need to participate. I don't care what's on TV or what game is going on. This is way more important than that. Put your beer down and get up and get out and take this on. Because if you want to be an American, that moment is about to pass away.
It is. And recently we had somewhat of a small, I don't want to call it a victory, but it was encouraging. We've got some momentum going here to remove the fluoridation from the water. One of our aldermen, Jim Bowl from the 5th District, Milwaukee, he developed the petition, and they brought on Dr. Paul Conant and Dr. Osmondson and a pediatrician, too. I forgot her name. And it was interesting because it's indicative of the type of response that we would get on Agenda 21, which is something that people are at least somewhat aware of the fluoridation issue. Agenda 21, that's why we're doing the show today, and that's why we have to get this information out. Very few people to none are familiar with this here in Milwaukee. I mean, it's just so, it's a big step to move towards this. If you're just tuning into the show, actually now I'm talking with Rosa Koire. She's the author of the book Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. She herself, working in her field, uncovered this agenda as she swept into this agenda sweeping the nation while she was trying to stop a huge redevelopment project in her own city and she researched the corporate, political, and financial interests behind it and found this UN Agenda 21. She's talking about a systematic takeover of our local and state property rights, civil rights, personal rights, and that it's a system and infrastructure already in place. It's backed up by such as the NDAA, the John Warner Defense Act, HR 347, HR 1955. All this ties together. It's legislation to take your right to speak out, your First Amendment right, actually, to speak out against it. And if we don't listen to what Rose is saying here today, we're going to wake up, as Thomas Jefferson once warned us, that we will wake up homeless on the land that our forefathers conquered and fought for, owned by central foreign banks.
Mm-hmm. It's true. You know, all is not lost. We're all, I'm going across the United States. I'm on my way tomorrow. I'll be in Florida, and after that in New Hampshire, and after that in New York, and just came from Virginia and Texas and Oregon and Washington, and this is all over the country, and people are waking up, they're getting up, they're standing up, they're speaking out, and we are everywhere. So join together with everyone, please, and educate yourself and join with us in re-erecting our constitutional republic. That is something that we can still do.
Indeed, Rosa. That I wasn't aware that you were traveling so much. Thank goodness you are. I know this has been a long interview, and I thank you because actually we didn't even touch into some of the deeper, nastier details. But I wanted to make sure before we leave that you get out any points that you wanted to make today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I feel that in this, that we've covered a lot. I think that I'd like to see people go to our websites for more information. You can find it on. We have postsustainabilityinstitute.org. That's our larger national group, and then Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com. And I want to emphasize this is not a Democrat-Republican thing. It's nonpartisan. It's all Americans.
Right.
I just happen to be a Democrat, and a lot of people that are speaking out about this are on the other end of the political spectrum from me. And I wanted to encourage people who, like me, are on the left who needed to get their information from someone like themselves. So. But the information's all the same. It's just the information. It's fact.
Right.
So anyway, and also, the book's available on Amazon.com. It's also available on Kindle and Nook. And great info. It's easy to read. It's a short book and has 20 pages on what you can do to fight this. And it's very practical information. It's fun. You can do it. And I tell you, there's nothing more exciting, nothing more exhilarating, nothing more stimulating than standing up and speaking out, speaking the truth, and supporting your nation.
You are so right, Rose. It's a little scary sometimes and a little humble. Actually, I find myself humbled every time I take that first step to do something. The immediate thing comes in, well, who am I? How could you possibly make a difference? You'd be surprised, people. You just got to take that step and find others that'll listen and support the cause. We can do it. As ordinary people, we'll have to do it. No superhero is going to come save us. I'm sorry. No Avengers. No Lone Ranger, whatever generation you grew up in. It's us at this level doing it. Please go to Rose's website, Democrats Against UN Agenda21.com. I will be following up. Rosa, I don't know if you knew this. I mean, for example, I've been reading excerpts from your book on the show and letting people know about it for about 4 episodes here. I actually enjoy reading the book because it's just so mind-blowing. You just can't believe this stuff. And she's got, I know the interview only went so long today, but she's got so much information in here that would really answer a lot of questions you might have, and just it explains thoroughly how the system works. And it's well written too. It really is. I enjoyed the read. I did.
All right. Well, thank you. And I want to encourage people also, if you want to go on YouTube, I've got lots of speeches on there that I've given in various parts of the country, and also a video that I made of us anti-Delphiing a meeting, a government meeting. It's called Near Riot at Delphi meeting.
I wanted to, I don't know if I found, somebody had techniques to counteract the Delphi technique. And that was interesting, how you go in there with the group and you can't let them know you're a group. You have to position yourself throughout the audience. You can't lose your cool. You have to stick to the topic. Don't let them try to sway you off topic. And when they're all done blabbering their mouths, politely state, I'm sorry, you haven't answered my question. My question was, and then state it. And then if they get frustrated and tell you to sit down or shut up, your buddy across the room who's been hiding out like a sleeper cell needs to pop up and say, actually, I'm interested in what that gentleman has to his question. Could you please answer that question? If you keep doing that, you'll drive these moderators insane, won't you?
It's true, and of course they're getting better and better at identifying you. And so the video that we made is of a meeting. It was past the time that we had been doing that, and they basically decided that they weren't going to allow us to ask any questions at all. So we had to take over their meeting, and that's pretty interesting to watch. We're really on the battleground here in California, and we're doing our best, and we encourage everybody across the country to also take this on, because we will win this. And these are people who are facilitators. They are trained in managing us, in managing meetings. And, of course, we're just, we're not trained in that, but we need to get trained. We need to train in anti-Delphing and fighting back, because this is, this is very important.
Well, just like your sports analogy, we just learned that there was a game, and we're sitting on the second string bench and trying to organize a team to go up against the NFL's greatest league, who is trained for,
They're not that good, okay? Don't freak people out that much. These people are not as good as they think they are.
Okay, good.
And we need to show them that.
Okay, thank you.
They're getting paid. This is the thing, is that they've gone through their training, their consensus building training, and and it's a cakewalk. They've been walking in the park now, and we have flipped this. We're turning it around across the country, and you won't see it in mainstream media, though. They will still. Huffington Post just interviewed me, and
really?
It was a ridiculous interview.
Oh, no.
I posted it on. It's on YouTube, and you'll see what they wrote and what I talked about. This is something you want to do. You want to absolutely make sure you turn the tables on these people and don't allow them to rewrite history, because this is what's happening. So I really appreciate being on your show. I think it's really important that you have devoted this time to helping your listeners to understand what is going on there in Milwaukee and what's happening all across the United States right now.
As I say, people can talk about conspiracy theories, but this is an actual agenda that you can look into and find out that it is, in fact, happening. It's not a conspiracy. It's an agenda.
It is a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy fact. It's not a conspiracy theory.
Yes, thank you. Good clarification. Yes,
we've got it. We've got it, and we're doing it. So hopefully sometime I'll come to Milwaukee, and we can do a do this in person. Maybe do an interview in person.
And I'd like love it. Love it.
Yeah, it'd be great.
And we can help any support, whoever we can muster up here on the side. We'd be glad to help you out when you come in, so that we can do a little volunteerism, help promote you. Let us know. You have keep my contact information, please. I would like to, let me know ahead of time, so that we could organize and get something really going, so that when you do come, we can bring out some of the big guns, get some of the aldermen on board on this issue.
Good. That's right. I actually, more and more when I give speeches, there are more and more elected officials in the audience. And actually, when I go to New Hampshire, I'll be addressing the New Hampshire legislature. I think that we need to help our elected officials to understand what's happening, because they, like us, have been Delphied. And we need to release this information, assist, and also remove those who do not stand up and support our freedom.
I agree. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, look, the majority of the wealth is in our home ownership if you are middle class. That's where we keep our wealth, and that's where it's being attacked right now.
That's right. So I want to thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Rosa, yes, indeed. Indeed. Please go on.
And I'd be happy to be on with you anytime. Thank you again.
Oh, you're most welcome. Rosa Koire, that's Koire, for those of you that don't know. We'll be right back. Again, Rosa, have a good day. Good luck with your crusade. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. An incredible interview. Incredible. I wish we could go into it further, but actually the conversation is so complex. It's so deep that it's just easier if you go and get Rosa's book, Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. Her name is spelled, her last name is Koire, first name Rosa. She's at the Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com. Go there. She's got a lot of materials. It sounds to me like I've got my work cut out from here, for me as well. Not only do we have to follow up on the fluoridation issue, which is something that, I needed to call. I wanted to call Commissioner Baker's office back again while we're on air. Let me see if I got this number here because, yes, by golly, we need to follow up on that. Let me just see if they're around. It's been so tough. I tell you, I never did get that email back. But basically, we need aldermen, alderwomen, anybody, community leaders, priests, pastors. We need people to come forward and get active and get involved in this. And it's kind of weird when we say get active. There is a lot of activism. It's not like people are just sitting on their butts completely, especially here in River West all the time. It seems like activism is just, it's the way to go. All right, here, I got Commissioner Baker's number. Let's just give them a little call real quick and see what's going up and follow up on this. Hang on. Okay, one moment. We're doing the telephone. All right, here's the number. Okay.
Hello, you've just reached Brandy Guillory, the Executive Assistant to the Commissioner of Health, which is Bevan Baker, for the City of Milwaukee's Health Department. Please leave a message after the tone, and I will return your call. Thank you. Bye.
Please leave your message after the tone. When done, hang up or press the pound key.
Hi, this is Michael Wordsworth. I'm following up to talk to Commissioner Baker about finding somebody to go on record for the pro-fluoridation side. I didn't receive his email. Actually, I probably could get it online, but I was hoping if you get a chance to call us back here. I'm still in the office. It's 414-935-2951. That's 935-2951. Shoot me a call. Otherwise, I could talk to you Monday at 3:30. I'm going to attempt to contact you again. I didn't receive Commissioner Baker's email, so I would use that. Maybe I can find it up on the website. But if you get a chance, please give me a call back here. My name is Michael Wordsworth. I'm at riverwestradio.com. The number is 414-935-2951 or breakingdownthenews@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Well, there you go. I mean, it's hard to say. I would have called earlier, except we had Rosa coming on, and thank goodness we did. It really is. But there's so much to follow up on. Many out there, maybe these are the first you're hearing of these issues. I'm sure it's kind of a scary wakening up experience when you become aware of what's really going on behind the scenes. But I don't know. That's why we have the show. It's called alternative media. All the other media conglomerates are owned by just basically 5 companies in this country. And they're going to tell you what they want you to hear, not what you should hear. And that's why people are turning now to more alternative news more than ever. CNN, they're losing listeners, viewers, watchers all the time. The only people left watching the mainstream media tends to be the elderly, those that are not so much inclined to use the internet, because it's the internet where you will find this information. Yes, it is scary, but we're trying to break it down for you and make it palatable, even sometimes make it entertaining. I mean, it doesn't hurt to be somewhat entertaining, does it? And with that in mind, I'm going to play this short FBI interview where I go and interview Deputy Director Hank Polarank to find out how things are going on in their war against terrorism. When we come back, we're going to Just pound through a lot of world news, local news, and yes, all of it is interesting. Nothing is fluff here. No fluffy stuff here. Just the straight up news. The only fluff we brought, and it was actually related, was apparently somebody in Yemen or Syria is offering 20 chickens to bring down Hillary Clinton or lead to information to her arrest, and 10 cows for Barack Obama. That's how desperate these people are willing to give up their chicken and cows to have these foreign occupiers stop taking over their leadership, county, and state, just like UN Agenda 21's going to be doing to us. All right, we're going to go to this interview, and when we come back, pound through the world news. Be right back. The FBI headquarters is a huge modern building in the middle of downtown. Cars and trucks drive past the front entrance on this very active street, and these doors will lead us to the elevators that will take us to the office of Deputy Director Hank Polarank.
Welcome to the FBI headquarters. Can I help you?
Yes, I have an appointment with Deputy Director Polarank.
And your name is?
Michael Wordsworth from RiverWestRadios.com, breaking down the news show.
Michael who? No.
The staff at the FBI was professional and courteous as they greeted me, and after a few security complications were smoothed out, I was soon able to get in to do my interview. Michael Wordsworth from Breaking Down the News.
Hey, come on in, take a seat.
And it was an interesting interview. How many terrorist plots has the FBI foiled in the last few years?
We've been busy, very busy with ongoing investigations. It's hard to say off the top of my head. 10, maybe 12?
And out of those 10 or 12 incidents, how many of those were not terrorist plots instigated by the FBI?
None actually.
Not one.
Well, the underwear bomber, that wasn't us.
But it came to light that the underwear bomber was forced onto the plane by a well-dressed man, and he didn't go through security. That wasn't the FBI.
No. Might have been Secret Service. I think they handled that one.
I'd like to quote an article from the New York Times. Can I?
Sure, go ahead.
This is an article by David K. Shipler, published April 29, 2012, and I quote, "But all these dramas were facilitated by the FBI, whose undercover agents and informers posed as terrorists offering a dummy missile, fake C4 explosives, a disarmed suicide vest, and rudimentary training. Suspects naively played their parts until they were arrested. When an Oregon college student, Mohammed Osman Mohammed, thought of using a car bomb to attack a festive Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Portland, the FBI provided a van loaded with 55-gallon drums of inert material, harmless blasting caps, a detonator cord, and a gallon of diesel fuel to make the van smell flammable. An undercover FBI agent even did the driving, with Mr. Muhammad in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
To trigger the bomb, the student punched a number into a cell phone and got no boom, only a bust. What do you say to that?"
What's your point?
My point is it sounds like we really don't have a terrorism problem in America beyond those plots the FBI makes up itself.
What? How did you get in here? Agent Smith?
Be right in. What is it, sir? Hey, wait. How did you get in here? I don't believe this. He doesn't have clearance, sir. You'll have to come with me.
He doesn't have clearance? How did he get past you?
He snuck in here when I went to pay for the pizza delivery. I was there for a while. I wanted exact change.
Okay, hey, thanks for the interview. That's all I need now.
Sir, stop. Come back here.
He doesn't have clearance?
Thank you. Talk soon. You guys take care.
Security, we have a gate jumper headed for the elevators.
And whereas this interview did not yield all the answers I wanted, I did get to state my point. And as I was leaving the FBI building, I had the realization that making my point was worth the trip. again, the Bilderberg meeting is happening today in Chantilly, Virginia, where many of Europe's top bankers and technocrats are gathering in secret to plan the global economy for the next 12 months. To get a deeper view of this, Breaking Down the News has met with David Rockefeller in Virginia. Mr. Rockefeller, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. I'm sure this is a big moment in your pathetic life as a news talk show host.
Now, do you prefer that I call you Evil, or just Mr. Rockefeller, or David Evil Rockefeller?
Ooh, that sounds good, yes. Call me David Evil Rockefeller. I like the sound of that.
Very well, Mr. Evil Rockefeller. Now, Bilderberg, the not-so-secret meeting taking place this week...
Now, hold on there a second. We are grateful to the Washington Post, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. But now, since the New York Times betrayed me, I would like to retract my praise for the cowardly media outlets that leaked our little get-togethers to the mainstream. Boo! Hiss! Hiss! It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries.
But Mr. Evil...
That's David Evil Rockefeller to you.
My apologies.
No, you should get it right. You're a reporter for Lucifer's sake.
Pardon me, David Evil Rockefeller.
That's better. Normally, we hate to be forced out of the shadows, but some fat bastard keeps blowing a bullhorn at my hotel room all weekend, shouting, "The answer to 1984 is 1776 or something like that." I mean, what the Hades does that mean? Well, this unruly blowhard has got the people all up in arms.
Well, yes, the people are revolting.
They most certainly are.
Pardon?
The people, yes, they are most revolting.
No, I meant the people are revolting against these secret meetings taking place now that the public has become aware of them.
Oh, that. Well, of course, but they don't pay attention. They don't listen. Most don't even know who I am or what I do.
That isn't true. Not of the young people these days. They don't see much of a future ahead of them because of men like you and the Bilderberg attendees. The younger generations are starting to really pay attention.
Ah, but that is exactly why I created Justin Bieber. Made him out of some spare parts I had laying around.
I would still say the tide is turning, and the people are waking up to your corrupt, technocratic system.
This present window of opportunity, during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built, will not be open for long. We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order.
Alright, calm down. At this year's meeting of the Bilderbergers, you've got some big-time European heavyweights there. Dr. Joseph Ackerman, Angela Merkel, Herman Van Rompuy, all meeting with you to figure out what to do with the economy for the next 12 months. Now, if Greece is to leave the Eurozone, the rumor is that the Bilderbergs are panicking. Okay, sorry I'm going to interrupt this interview. I've played it a few times. We've got these interviews as an opportunity for me to get a break. It's a long episode. We're going to 6 o'clock today, and I got to get through this news. I really, really do. So let me just play the news intro, and then I'm going to come back pounding it out. Hang on. United Nations warns of global collapse due to pesticides. Agenda 21 is pushed as the solution. Good afternoon, I'm Michael Wordsworth. This is June 15th, 2012 on Friday. It's a beautiful day out there, and what do we got happening in the news? The United Nations Environment Program has released a 525-page report in conjunction with its upcoming Rio 20 conference on sustainable development that warns about sudden, irreversible, and potentially catastrophic changes that will occur in the world if drastic measures are not taken to stop them. This article from Natural News, naturalnews.com, by Mike Adams. Actually, this article was written by Ethan A. Huff, staff writer. Good job, Ethan. Incorrectly identified pesticides and other chemicals as one of the primary causes. The UN also tacks on the global warming myth in an attempt to push for a centralized world government. The Associated Press reports that the UN manifesto correctly pinpoints out-of-control pesticide and herbicide use as a major global problem that is polluting rivers, streams, and waterways and contributing to ecosystem destruction. But it also highlights the typical scare scenarios often associated with global warming as well, including melting polar ice caps, rising sea levels, and a so-called excess of greenhouse gases. This crafty mixture of truth and lies appears to be the UN's latest attempt at garnering more support for its global government's agenda, which includes things like establishing a global internet police force and setting up a global taxation system for imposing things like mandatory vaccinations in developing countries. The UN's goal, in other words, is to centralize as much power for itself as it possibly can. That is why the UN is constantly sounding the alarm about fantasy boogeymen like global warming, which can only be overcome if every nation on Earth surrenders its sovereignty to international governing forces. Yep, that's the only solution we got there. I'm being facetious. Although in this latest case, the UN is throwing in a little bit of the truth about chemical overuse and its devastating effects across the globe. Pesticides and herbicides destroying bees, crops, water, and soil. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency estimates that at least 70% of the pollution in the nation's rivers, lakes, and streams stems from industrial farming practices that involve the intensive use of chemicals. A 2002 study published in the journal Environmental Health Perspective also identified industrial agriculture as highly problematic for the amount of chemicals used. As we have covered extensively here at Natural News recently, pesticides and herbicides are destroying bees, bats, and other natural crop pollinators, and essentially killing the microbial balance of soils. This 1-2 punch is having devastating consequences globally. As soils are becoming unfit to grow food and the creatures responsible for pollinating them are becoming extinct. The problem of chemicals, unlike the man-made carbon dioxide-triggered global warming myth, is chemicals are actually a real problem. But it is now being tacked onto global warming for the sake of promoting global governments, a scam of which the natural health community needs to be aware. UN Agenda 21 for Sustainable Development is a ploy for world government. Under the guise of sustainable government and saving the planet from destruction, the UN is pushing what is known as Agenda 21, a plan to collectivize private property globally, re-educate the world into a single globalist mindset, and eventually depopulate the world. And one of the ways the UN is ushering in Agenda 21 is through the vehicle of global warming and environmental destruction, two issues that it says must be addressed globally. Look, however you feel about the global warming issue, you got to acknowledge that whether it's a real threat or not, what we're not addressing is the actual problems. Well, all we're really doing is slowly losing our rights, property rights, values, sending our manufacturing over to China where there is no EPA regulations, and deindustrializing the industrialized world. Why don't you have jobs? Well, this is one of the reasons. So, the situation is tricky. As a nation, the U.S. clearly needs to address the issue of chemical pesticides and herbicides that are causing monumental environmental destruction, not to mention an epidemic of health-related problems in humans. But the UN is currently trying to seize more power by exploiting this very real problem and tacking it onto its power grab agenda. You can learn more about the UN and Agenda 21 at www.freedomadvocates.org. I'm Michael Wordsworth. This is Breaking Down the News. More news in a minute. The EPA is in a huge power grab to control all ditches and gullies on private land. That's right, on private land. Why is the EPA doing this? This article from Natural News. As the federal Leviathan becomes ever larger and all-powerful, its executive branch tentacles reach further and further into the American fabric as it seeks to exert authority and control over more and more of our lives. The latest mad power grab can be attributed to the not-so-illustrious EPA. The Clean Water Act to control all ditches, gullies, and other ephemeral areas by trying to say that they are navigable waterways. Sure, like the ditch in front of your home can support barge traffic or a U.S. Navy warship. That's what they're talking about. Those little streams and offlets need to be controlled, and guess what? They run right through your private property. Lawmakers who oppose the grab said the ridiculous waterways claim made by the EPA are temporary sites at best, created by rain or melting snow, but if controlled would prohibit private property owners from utilizing their own land for raising crops, grazing livestock, or any number of uses. Quote from, who is this from here? This is from Representative John Mica from Florida, who is the chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Never in the history of the CWA has federal regulation defined ditches and other upland features as waters of the United States. Well, they have now. EPA administration is not above the law. This is without any doubt an expansion of federal jurisdiction, said the representatives. Yes, no doubt, when the federal government can legitimately claim authority over land surrounding temporary puddles of water, liberty is truly dead. Still, it's good to see that bipartisanship isn't completely dead in Washington. Republicans have been joined by some Democrats in opposing this blatant power grab by supporting legislation to specifically overturn the latest EPA regulations. This quote, the Obama administration is doing everything in its power to increase costs and regulatory burdens for American businesses, farmers, and individual property owners, Micah told Human Events magazine. This federal jurisdiction grab has been opposed by Congress for years, and now the administration and its agencies are ignoring law and rulemaking procedures in order to tighten their regulatory grip over every water body in the country. He added, quote, but this administration needs to realize it is not above the law. The House measure, which faces a less certain future in the Senate and likely veto by President Obama, has 64 co-sponsors from both sides of the political aisle. It was passed out of committee in early June. Senator John Barrasso, a Republican from the heavy cattle state of Wyoming and a sponsor of the Senate's version of the House bill, said in March that Obama's EPA continues to act as if it is above the law. Seriously, what exactly is protected? The agency, quote, is using the overreaching guidance to preempt state and local governments, farmers and ranchers, small business owners and homeowners from making local land and water use decisions, Barroso said. Our bill will stop this unprecedented Washington power grab and restore Americans' property rights. It's time to get EPA lawyers out of Americans' backyards. I couldn't agree more. The EPA and Army Corps of Engineers say they wrote the new regulations in response to a pair of U.S. Supreme Court decisions in 2001 and 2006, which removed some waterways from federal protection, but created some confusion about what remained protected. With that said, supporters of the legislation blocking the new regulations say jurisdictional limits set by the High Court are being ignored by the federal Leviathan and probably on purpose. By the way, speaking of lawyers and lawmakers, Congress has the power to curb abuses by the EPA and every other federal agency. First, by cutting off funding to said agencies, and second, by passing legislation that reduces the agency's power or eliminates it altogether. Since federal agencies are managed by the executive branch, which is headed up by the president, that's right, he too has control over their scope and duties. The problem is, you have to have enough lawmakers who are cognizant of the Leviathan's overreach and a president who agrees with you on this issue. Under current congressional and presidential conditions, that kind of agreement is not likely. The Federal Reserve Board members gave their own banks $4 trillion in bailouts. This from allgov.com on June 14th. Following the 2008 financial crisis, the Federal Reserve provided more than $4 trillion in near-zero interest loans and other help to banks and businesses whose executives also served as directors for the National Bank. At least 18 current and former Fed regional bank directors had a direct stake in the $1 trillion bailout given to teetering institutions, according to a report produced by the Government Accountability Office, but released by Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Quote, this report reveals the inherent conflicts of interest that exist at the Federal Reserve, Sanders said in a prepared statement. At a time when small businesses could not get affordable loans to create jobs, the Fed was providing trillions in secret loans to some of the largest banks and corporations in America that were well represented on the boards of the Federal Reserve banks. The Obama war machine continues with its invasion of Syria. They're ramping up for a Syrian invasion. This article from Infowars.com. CNN reports that this afternoon that the Pentagon has finalized plans to attack Syria and forcefully depose its leader, Bashar al-Assad. Under the cover of securing weapons of mass destruction and preventing sectarian violence, it is fomented by supporting and training the Free Syrian Army. Officials told CNN the U.S. military has completed its own planning for how American troops would conduct a variety of operations against Syria or to assist neighboring countries in the event action was ordered. CNN says the Pentagon has, quote, finalized its assessment of what types of units would be needed, how many troops, and even the cost of certain potential operations. There is a sense that if the sectarian violence in Syria grows, it could be worse than what we saw in Iraq. Oh my goodness, we got to invade them immediately. I'm being sarcastic. I do that from time to time. Back to the article. The attack plan is similar to the one used against Libya. The military planning includes a scenario for a no-fly zone, as well as protecting chemical and biological sites. Officials say all the scenarios would be difficult to enact and involve large numbers of U.S. troops and extended operations. CNN reveals that the United States, Britain, and France have discussed the attack, which they describe as contingency scenarios, and have trained specifically for a military intervention. They are also sharing of intelligence about what has happened in Syria with neighboring countries, including Jordan, Turkey, and Israel. In December, Sybil Edmonds reported that foreign military groups estimated at hundreds of individuals had taken up position in the city of Al-Mafraq in northern Jordan on the Syrian border. The troops had arrived from the Ain al-Assad air base in Iraq, and a U.S. aircraft carrying military personnel landed in the Prince Hassan air base located about 100 kilometers to the east of the city of Al-Mafraq. CNN quotes 3 Defense Department officials as stating that U.S. Special Forces are training and advising Jordanian troops on a range of specific military tasks they might need to undertake if unrest in Syria spills over into the Jordan or poses a threat to that country. The news just keeps coming. I'll be right back in 2 seconds. Don't go away. The Center for Disease Control says fluoride has no evidence of benefit for infants. No kidding. Well, they don't have teeth, so how would that possibly help them? This article from Doug Cragoe. I'm sorry, Doug, I can't pronounce your name. Cragoe. There we go. Got to give proper credit here. From Natural News, this is an important article. The Center for Disease Control is the one that typically puts out pro-fluoridation stances, saying that we need it to be this alleged medicine to be indiscriminately added in our water without the monitors being leveled. And now you have the CDC coming along and admitting there is no evidence of benefit for infants, but then why is it in the baby infant water? This is so sick. Why is fluorosilicic acid in the infant water that they sell, and especially in the aisles of right next to the purified water? They sell it in the ghetto marts as if your child needs fluoride right now. Please don't give it to your kids. It's going to affect their brains. It can damage their health. Well, here's this article from Natural News. In a letter to California Senator Barbara Boxer, the Centers for Disease Control Director Thomas Frieden responded to questions about fluoride and infants. The Institute of Medicine in 1997 set the adequate amount of fluoride for infants 0 to 6 months at age 0.01 milligrams per day, which is the amount of fluoride found in breast milk. The CDC was asked if more fluoride than the adequate amount was beneficial. CDC Director Frieden wrote, "We are unaware of data that directly answers your questions about the additional protection from tooth decay that could result from greater daily fluoride intake by infants 0 to 6 months of age." In other words, there is no scientific evidence that dosing babies with lots of fluoride has any benefit at all. When powdered infant formula is prepared with fluoridated tap water, that's right, you add tap water to your infant formula, infants get a very large dose of fluoride, and it can exceed the tolerable upper intake level of 0.7 milligrams per day set by the IOM in 1977. I apologize, in 1997. When asked what adverse health effects could occur when infants exceed the tolerable upper intake level, Director Frieden responded that the level was set to minimize the risk of moderate and severe dental fluorosis, a developmental disturbance in children. Fluorosis means discolored, malformed teeth, which can be stained brown or black. Other adverse health effects or inadvertently dosing babies with heavy doses of fluoride are not considered important by government agencies. Ironically, the fluoride is supposed to keep our teeth from decaying and turning yellow and black, and yet fluorosis is a common problem. You get fluoride in your toothpaste, in your water, you go to the dentist, you get extra fluoride. Guess what? You're actually turning your teeth yellow. You're discoloring them by this practice. What should be recommended but isn't because fluoridation might look bad? Well, healthcare providers should recommend the use of non-fluoridated water to prepare powdered infant formula, but that recommendation is seldom made in the U.S. In 2006, the CDC and American Dental Association finally admitted what dental research studies have been saying for many years, that infant formula prepared with fluoridated water increased the risk of fluorosis. But they were reluctant to actually inform parents about this risk to infants because it cast doubt on water fluoridation. They were afraid that people would stop drinking fluoridated water and oppose efforts to start fluoridation in their communities. So in 2006, the only thing the CDC and ADA did was publish web pages about the risk, and since the ADA has opposed further efforts to inform parents. The Pew, P-E-W, Children's Dental Campaign is pushing for more fluoridation. Oh, you bastards. But they don't want parents to know about the fluorosis risk from infant formula. Well, why not? I mean, what kind of sick person would be that way? The American Academy of Pediatrics should have informed their members about this risk, but they never did. Infant formula manufacturers have refused to put this information on their packaging labels. Most WIC programs refuse to inform parents about the risk from the free powdered infant formula they provide. Science had been cooked up to slave fluoridation's image. Last year in a scientific document, the ADA reversed their 2006 position and said that fluoridated water could be recommended for infant formula preparation. Oh my goodness. There was no explanation for this recommendation, which increased fluorosis risk for no benefit. It seemed to be science generated purely to draw attention away from the facts and to justify keeping parents ignorant of the risks. Although large, wealthy organizations hope people never learn about the risk to some people think parents should be informed. I do. The New Hampshire Assembly bill passed that would require a fluorosis advisory about infant formula to appear on water bills, but the bill was modified by the state and Senate to only have the advisory printed on seldom read annual water quality reports. Well, that's all we're going to get, huh? Fluorosis is an increasingly common developmental disturbance that affects infants. However, the reputation of water fluoridation has been deemed more important than the health of infants. Incredible. Pounding out the news, we have an alert. NATO Gulf Axis set to deploy vast disinformation campaign in Syria. Member states of NATO and the GCC are preparing a coup d'etat and a sectarian genocide in Syria. If you want to prevent these crimes, you should act now. Circulate this information on the internet and alert your elected officials. In a few days, perhaps as early as Friday, June 15th at noon, the Syrians want to watch their national TV stations. We'll see them replaced on their screens by TV programs created by the CIA. Studio-shot images will show massacres that are blamed on the Syrian government, people demonstrating, ministers and generals resigning from their posts, President al-Assad fleeing, the rebels gathering in big city centers, and a new government installing itself in the presidential palace. This operation of disinformation, directly managed from Washington by Ben Rhodes, the U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategic Communication, aims at demoralizing the Syrians in order to pave the way for a coup d'etat. NATO, discontent about the double veto of Russia and China, will thus succeed in conquering Syria without attacking the country illegally. Whichever judgment you might have formed on the actual events in Syria, a coup d'etat will end all hopes of democratization. The Arab League has officially asked the satellite operators Arabsat and Nilesat to stop broadcasting Syrian media, either public or private. A precedent already exists because the Arab League had managed to censure Libyan TV in order to keep the leaders of the Jamahiriya from communicating with their people. There is no Hertz network in Syria, where TV works exclusively with satellites. The cut, however, will not leave the screens black. Actually, this public decision is only the tip of the iceberg. According to our information, several international meetings were organized during the past 2 weeks to coordinate the disinformation campaign. The first two were technical meetings held in Qatar. The third was a political meeting that took place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The first meeting assembled PSYOP officers embedded in the satellite TV channels of Al Arabiya, Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN, Fox, France 24, Future TV, and MTV. It is known that since 1998, the officers of the U.S. Army Psychological Operations Unit, a PSYOP Corps, have been incorporated in CNN. That's right. Army PSYOPs participating in news networks such as CNN. Since then, this practice has been extended by NATO to other strategic media as well. They fabricated false information in advance on the basis of a storytelling script devised by Ben Rhodes' team at the White House. A procedure of reciprocal validation was installed, which media quoting the lies of other media to render them plausible for TV spectators. The participants also decided not only to requisition the TV channels of the CIA for Syria and Lebanon, they also, about 40 religious Wahhabi TV channels are to call for confessional massacres to the cry of Christians to Beirut, Alawites into the grave. Oh, wow. All right, continuing on with this heart-pounding news. My goodness, I mean, all of this stuff is so devastating and impacting. Here's one. Document reveals draconian details of Obama's secret globalist trade pact. This article from Kurt Nimmo, Infowars.com. Democrats who plan to vote for Obama in November should be aware that the president is poised to sell the country down the river to transnational corporations. That's right. A newly leaked document posted on the Public Citizen website spells out the Obama administration's trade objectives under the Trans-Pacific Partnership, including a plan to allow transnational corporations to skirt American banking, investment, environmental, and labor laws. The laws would still apply to corporations based in the United States. Transnational megacorporations would be permitted to appeal American laws to a globalist international tribunal. If Congress overrules the decision of the tribunal, the United States would face punitive trade sanctions. Obama's secret trade pact is basically NAFTA on steroids. The leaked document shows that in all of the major respects, this is exactly the same template that was used in NAFTA and other agreements that President Obama campaigned against. Todd Tucker, the researcher director of Public Citizen's Global Trade Watch Division, told Slate. So-called liberal Bill Clinton shepherded the passage of NAFTA, a trade bill that ultimately cost America around 700,000 jobs and shipped them to slave labor gulags in Mexico and then China and Asia. This was the giant sucking sound Ross Perot warned about in 1992 before Clinton's free trade agreement went into effect in 1994. The outrageous stuff in this leaked text may well be known by the U.S. trade officials have been so extremely secretive about these past 2 years of trade negotiations, said Lori Wallach, director of Public Citizen's Global Trade Watch. Negotiations on the agreement were kept secret because of the trade pacts making a mockery of Obama's 2008 campaign promises. We will not negotiate bilateral trade agreements that stop the government from protecting the environment, food safety, or the health of its citizens, give greater rights to foreign investors than to U.S. investors, require the privatization of our vital public services, or prevent developing countries' governments from adopting humanitarian licensing policies to improve access to life-saving medications, an Obama campaign document reads. Well, since then, the Huffington Report's Judith Rios, the U.S. manager of Doctors Without Borders, said Bush was better than Obama on this. And according to the Huffington Post, quote, it's pathetic, but it is what it is. The world's upside down. Ugh. Obama and Bush represent the same interest, the interest of too big to fail banks and transnational megacorporations, and the overwhelming influences on both administrations are identical. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Citibank, and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, the latter two dedicated to establishing world government. In order to realize a world government dominated by banksters and multinational corporations, the United States, its laws, and especially its Constitution and Bill of Rights, must be circumvented and eventually destroyed. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a big step in this direction. Democrats who declare they will vote for Obama in November because they decry Romney as a stooge for the establishment should realize there is virtually no difference between the two candidates. Both will deliver the United States into slavery. U.S. and multinational military forces train in South Dakota's Black Hills. The Rapid City Journal reports today that the Golden Coyote training exercise is underway in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Here, for the Golden Coyote training exercise, military units are working to recreate the stress of combat and mixture of civilians, tourists, and wildlife populations, soldiers encounter in war theaters such as Iraq and Afghanistan, all while training with foreign soldiers. Well, I'm Michael Wordsworth. We're coming up to the top of the hour, 6 o'clock on Friday, June 15, 2012. We had a great interview with Rosa Corey, and up next, we have a wonderful show. Take care. It's wonderful. Talk to you Monday at 3:30. Peace out.